In this video, we got another episode of the Start Bench Cut series. Basically, what this series is I'll put out a tweet on Twitter at X7Tanaka saying, give me 3 players for a Start Bench Cut vid, and then you guys will let me know 3 different players or 3 different cards and their replies down below, and then I'll go through and tell you guys who I would start, who I'd bench, and then who I would cut between the 3 different cards, so you guys can just see which are the best cards from the 3 that you want to see from. So, for example, the first one here of the video is going to be Antoine Jameson, Glenn Rice, and Shane Battier at the shooting guard position. So for me personally, I would say start Shane Battier. I think he's the best shooting guard between the 3, and then I would say probably bench Antoine Jameson and cut Glenn Rice. I just don't think that Glenn Rice card really is anything too crazy in the game anymore. So if you guys want to let me know also 3 different players down below on the YouTube comment section, let me know 3 different cards and I'll tell you guys who I would start, who I'd bench, and then who I would cut. So let me know that down below in the YouTube comments. But yeah, looking at the next one here is going to be Lamar Odom, Danny Ferry, and Mike Bantam. I would say for this one, you definitely want to be starting Danny Ferry. I still think he's great on the offensive end, has an amazing jump shot, and then I would say bench Mike Bantam, a great all-around small forward. He pretty much has no flaws, a great jump shot, good dribble sigs, all-around great stats and badges. And then Lamar Odom, he's not a bad small forward. I would say probably cut for these 3 different small forward cards. He's just not on the Danny Ferry or the Mike Bantam level. Next one is going to be Terry Dischinger, T-Mac, and Tim Thomas. And in my opinion, these are the top 3 shooting guards in the game. Like, no question. I think easily these are the top 3 guys. For me personally, I do think it's actually going to be Tracy McGrady. It's going to be Tim Thomas getting starting. I think he's the best between the 3, and then I think it's most likely going to be what's going to be between T-Mac and Terry, and that's really just a toss-up. But the reason why I have Tim Thomas over T-Mac and over Terry Dischinger is the fact that he's 6'10" with a great player model, so he's going to have more size at the shooting guard position. Stats-wise, very similar cards. Badges-wise, also very similar cards. I mean, he does have 40 Hall of Fame badges, so he does have the badge count difference where he's got Hall of Fame, unpluckable. He's got more Hall of Fame defensive badges, which is cool, but not going to be really too big of a difference. The main difference really comes down to the animation screen. I would say Tim Thomas has easily better dribble sigs than T-Mac. He's got the Steve Francis size up, which is tons better than the T-Mac size up, and then he also does have the Trey escape, which I think if you know how to use it effectively is better than the Curry escape. And also tendencies wise, he's got way better defensive tendencies, so very close. And it really just comes down to the fact if you can green Tim Thomas's jump shot, because if you can green his release consistently and you also know how to take advantage of the Trey fade, and then I do think that's what makes Tim Thomas better. But maybe for a lot of people, they like T-Mac a little bit more just because he's going to be an easier shooting guard to use. But if you're good with Tim Thomas and you know how to take advantage of the card, I think he's going to be getting starting. I think it's really between Terry and T-Mac. Like, it's a toss-up. I would say Terry Dischinger is slightly better than T-Mac, but it's really 1A, 1B for those 2 guys. So I'd say start Tim Thomas, then I would bench Terry Dischinger and cut Tracy McGrady, but all very close at the shooting guard position. Next one is going to be Billy Knight, Steve Smith, and Glenn Rice. Very simple one for me personally. Going to be starting Steve Smith. I think he's probably the 4th or 5th best shooting guard in the game, and then I would cut Billy Knight. I do think he's slightly better than Glenn Rice, just has a better release, better dribble sigs, and all around just a better card. So for these 3 cards, I would say start Steve Smith, bench Billy Knight, and then cut Glenn Rice. Next one is going to be another Glenn Rice, Shane Battier, and Scottie Pippen at the 2. For me, I would definitely start Battier. I would probably bench Glenn Rice at the shooting guard position. I think he's a little bit better than Scottie at that 2 spot. I do think Scottie Pippen is a better overall card because Pippen's a lot better at small forward. So for me personally, if we're talking at the shooting guard position, I would start Shane Battier, bench Glenn Rice, and then cut Scottie Pippen. Next one is going to be Hero MJ, Luka, and Jimmy Butler. Really good point guards. I would say these are 3 of the best point guards in the game. I would most likely start Luka Doncic. I do want to compare him to Jordan and just kind of see the difference in the cards. They're both going to have the KPJ base. Luka's got a little bit more size and a little bit better of a player model, but going to be very similar. MJ does take it on the stats, 1000%. MJ's got better stats. Now, is it going to be by a crazy amount? I would say no. If we look at the badges, MJ's also going to take that, but once again, not by a crazy margin. He is going to have a ton more Hall of Fame defensive badges, which is good for MJ for sure. It definitely does make the card better for stats and badges, but animations, this is where the biggest difference comes into play. I think his jump shot with the KPJ base, they both have the same base, but the Rudy Gay upper is so much better than the MJ upper. Like, it's a world of difference. If you guys have used Luka and if you guys have used the Hero MJ, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. Luka's release is so much better, and then then I also do like the Trey escape, or sorry, I like the Trey size up a little bit more than the Kyle Lowry size up. So very similar cards. I do think Luka Doncic is the best point guard in the game and slightly better than Hero MJ, but it's super close even between these 3 point guards. I would say start Luka Doncic, bench Hero MJ, and then cut Jimmy Butler. Not to say Jimmy's a bad point guard by any means. He's just not going to be on the MJ or Luka Doncic level. Next one is going to be Sean Livingston, Antoine Jameson, and Ricky Davis. Very weird one. I'm not sure if he's talking about at shooting guard, because at shooting guard, I would go Ricky Davis starting, bench Antoine Jameson, and then cut Sean Livingston. But if we're talking about cards in general, you know, just as like 3-player cards, I would say probably start Sean Livingston, bench Ricky Davis, and cut Antoine Jameson. But if we're talking at shooting guard, I just don't think Livingston's going to be the best there. I would just play him at the point guard spot. Next one is the one I already did, Terry, T-Mac, and Tim, which is start Tim Thomas, bench Terry Dischinger, and then cut Tracy McGrady. Next one is going to be Ron Artest, Luka Doncic, and the out of position Hero Jokic, which is all very close. I mean, these could be the 3 top point guards in the game. In my opinion, I think these probably are the top 3 point guards. I think between Luka and Jokic, it really comes down to the fact of how good you are at 3 hunting, and can you take advantage of Luka's jump shot and also having the Trey fade as well, because Luka's got better dribble sigs, not a question. He's also got the better fade, and he easily has the better jump shot. So he's got all better animations than Jokic, but Jokic is 6'11" with a 7'3" wingspan. So I feel like for majority of people, Jokic might be the better point guard just because he's easier to use, right? All you got to do is just play defense, you know, mash, rim run with Jokic, and he's going to be a lot easier to score the ball with and create space with. Where Luka Doncic, you got to know how to move with the card, you got to know his jump shot timing, you got to know the Trey fade to get the most out of Luka. I would say for me personally, I would start Luka Doncic, bench Jokic, and then cut Ron Artest. For a lot of people though, it might be start Jokic, bench Luka Doncic, and then cut Ron Artest, or maybe even Ron Artest over Luka, because Ron is just so elite on the defensive end. Like I will say, Ron Artest for his price tag is probably the guy that I would pick up between Luka Doncic and Jokic, just because he's so dominant on the defensive end, and he's going to be a lot cheaper compared to Dark Matter Luka, and especially the Hero Jokic. He's a great defender, pretty much perfect defensive stats and badges. He's got almost perfect defensive tendencies. He's got a great jump shot, good dribble sigs, Trey fade. I mean, the card is basically a perfect point guard, but I do think for this one, I would personally start Luka Doncic, bench Jokic, and then cut Ron Artest. Next one is going to be AK, Kuzma, and Big Z. I would say for majority of people, it's going to be start Big Z, bench AK, and then cut Kyle Kuzma, but it really depends what you need out of your small forward. If you're looking for an offensive guy, you probably go for Kyle Kuzma. If you're looking for defense, you go for AK-47. And if you just look for the cheesy giant card that I think is the overall best small forward here, is going to be the Galaxy Big Z. So it really depends what you need for that small forward position. But for me personally, I would start Big Z, bench AK, and then cut Kyle Kuzma. Next one is going to be Tim Thomas, Bull, and Bill Russell. I'm assuming he's talking at small forward. I would definitely be starting Bull. I think he's the best small forward in the game and potentially even the best card. Now, between Bill Russell and Tim Thomas, that just solely comes down to what you need at your small forward position. More than anything, like Bill Russell is a great defender, one of the best in the game. So if you're looking for a defender at your small forward position, and that's what you really need out of your small forward, then I would bench Bill Russell. Now, if you're looking for offense, you want a guy that can score the ball, be your main ball handler, and a guy that's just great on the offensive end, then you go for Tim Thomas. So for me personally, start Bull, and then between Bill Russell and Tim Thomas, it really just comes down to what you need. I would say Tim Thomas though is slightly better as an overall card, just because he can also play shooting guard. So I'd start Bull, bench Tim Thomas, and then cut Bill Russell. I'm just gonna kind of quickly go through the next couple, not really explain too much, but just kind of fly through them. Dikembe Mutombo, Hakeem, and Embiid at the 4. I would start Dikembe, bench Hakeem, and then cut Joel Embiid. Next one is Ricky Davis, Shane Battier, Mike Miller. I would say it's going to be in that order. Start Ricky Davis, bench Shane Battier, and then cut Mike Miller. Next one is going to be Jonathan Bender, Ferry, and Mourning at the 4. Definitely start Alonzo Mourning, one of the best power forwards in the game. I think number 2 right behind Taco Fall. And then between Danny Ferry and Jonathan Bender, I think at the power forward position, Jonathan Bender is slightly better. So I'd bench Bender and then cut Danny Ferry. The Tim Thomas, T-Mac, and Terry going to be Tim Thomas, Terry, and then T-Mac in that order. So start Tim Thomas, bench Terry Dischinger, and then cut T-Mac. I did something similar to that. Danny Ferry, Jonathan Isaac, Hero, Kyle Kuzma. I would start probably Kuzma, and bench Danny Ferry, both great offensive small forwards, and then I would cut Jonathan Isaac, just lacks a little bit on the offensive end. And then the last one here, guys, of the video is going to be out of position Hito Turkoglu, KPJ, and out of position Scotty Barnes. I think between Hito Turkoglu and KPJ, it's really preference, and really does matter if you really value a tall card at the point guard spot. I think for me personally, I would start Hito Turkoglu, bench KPJ, and then cut Scotty Barnes. But yeah, guys, that's going to do it for another episode of the Start Bench Cut series. Let me know in the comment section down below 3 different players or 3 different cards, mainly at the same position would make the most sense. But if you just want to do 3 cards in general, you can also let me know that type of stuff as well. And then I'll tell you guys who I'd start, who I'd bench, and then who I would cut. But hopefully you guys did enjoy, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace.